Okay, so we're just going to finish off our evening now with a snapshot presentation by Charles Sondergaard, who is the owner of Sondergaard Accountants and is one of Perth's leading strategists. Hi, Charles, thank you very much.
Hey!
Are you mic'd?
Whoa, thank you.
Are you mic'd?
Hopefully, yes, hopefully. Thank you everybody for coming, and thank you all those speakers, our sponsors, and my team for putting together the event. Let's see if I can make this thing work. It's getting late. Anybody want to stretch? You can have a quick stretch, please. Okay, let's see if this thing works. Now, disclaimer. There are lies, there are damn lies, and then there's my presentation. So don't believe anything without checking it on Dr. Google. Okay, we're going to go fast and see why. Oh, well, it does work. Now, I did this all myself until Bruno went in and put a whole lot of pictures on it. Okay, so what we're looking at is Perth and what's changing. So forgive me, I'm going to go real fast so we can all go get a beer and a wine after this. So why are people coming to Perth, or why do they leave other places? You know, better jobs, their children, safety, security, equal opportunity. While I'm there, Donald Trump, he stands for equal opportunity, or not. Lifestyle. So America's a strange place. 52 countries in one, none of them are equal. Australian economy, best economy in the world. So we had a weak June quarter. Reserve Bank, nobody knows why they dropped the rate this last little while. Everybody knows that when your interest rates go down to 2%, it doesn't matter if you make them zero, it makes no difference. It doesn't affect the economy. Since the GFC 2008 onwards, the whole world has been trying to drop their rates. They even tried negative. It made no difference. The world has been flat. Except in Australia, where our rates stayed a bit higher, and we had a booming economy. So if we look at the March quarter, we did 1.1% for the quarter. That means if we took that by 4, we were getting 4.4%. The 12 months to March was 3.1. And if we exclude that in that 12 months to March, the June quarter, we would be hitting 3.7. So you're living in the strongest economy in the world. We sit here in the West and we feel a bit nervous because it's a bit of us versus the Eastern Seaboard. So let's just quickly look at economies. The UK, the USA have been struggling to get past 2.2%. Germany has dropped to 1.3. It was doing quite well, but China's not buying their machines anymore. France has been France forever, a little bit left-wing and socialist. South Africa's gone into recession. Russia, that's an improvement for Russia. It was actually minus 2.5. That's getting better. So instead of taking 2.5 steps backwards, that's where they are. That's where they were. They've taken another 1.85 steps backwards. Okay, so they're going backwards. And Brazil's in crisis at the moment. We had the recession we had to have, Paul Keating, 90 to 96. Interest rates started off at 18%. In 1990, they were about 14. We had high inflation. You know what's been amazing, and I'll show you some numbers later, with that massive investment and the boom we had, we didn't have inflation. So, the lucky country, living off a sheep's back, sheep and wheat, digging up the country and exporting, Australia. No longer tourism, hospitality, education. So submarines, yes, that's for South Australia, but at Naval Base here, that's where we're servicing all the submarines. And the Collins class, we've got to keep them running for another 5 years. Do you know who services the Collins class? Perth, down at Naval Base. We do all the servicing. And Austal ships. In 1990, they didn't build ships. Now they build aluminium boats, leisure, USA, etc. What about prawns, kiwi fruit, garlic, meat? So that all sounds a bit exotic, but everything is getting broader here. So, Sea Farms. That's a West Perth listed company that grows prawns in Queensland. Who knows where Kununurra is? Just head up north, a bit to the right. So from Kununurra, it's 35 k's across to the border with the territory. The government only allowed in WA pastoral leases to be used for pastoral purposes. The territory allowed something like, I can't remember the exact number, 1/3 or 25% to be used for alternative uses. So that's why Kununurra is actually where the people live, but the prawn farm will be across the border from 35, 40 k's. So it's a $1.45 billion prawn farm. Who's ever heard of such a massive, big project? Why are they growing prawns? So they can ship them to China. Why? Because the Chinese don't like their own prawns because they grow them in dirty water. Okay, so sea farms. Darwin, so there was a very big abattoir built there processing 200-300 head of cattle a year. That's a brand new abattoir. So you all know Live Capital exports Julia Gillard. We can't send her to Indonesia because they're cruel there. You know, they kill them slowly. So anyway, AACO, which grows cattle and processes their own, also buys cattle from Western Australia, the Territory and Queensland. They put them in chill boxes and they send them to China. So they've got their processing up to 500 head a day on a single shift. That's in the wet season. Trucks are harder to drive across the territory. Dry season, they'll be up to 500. The capacity on a single shift is 800 head a day. Okay, if they run double later shifts, we can push 1,000 head of cattle out that abattoir a day and feed China. So, you know, if you look, Rio, I think it's Rio, up north, they've got spare water, so they grow feed and they put cows on it. That's in the north of WA. We got massive. We can double the cattle industry. Pembertown, so the largest second largest trees in the world, the Karri. You must have all visited there. Did you know it's the largest kiwi fruit farm in Australia? Okay, 25 kilometres of trailers, 10,000 vines, and getting back to people coming to Perth. Do you know who picks the kiwi fruit? The Estonians. The bulk of the people there at the moment picking fruit are Estonians. And so what's our government want to do? Let's scare the backpackers off and tax them, you know, at 33% flat rate, okay? Because they're rich people and they're useless to us and they're just taking our money and going back to Thailand and spending it and buying drugs or whatever. I don't know. It's a xenophobic government. So Alice Springs. Now, I know we're heading South Australia, sort of end of town, but we're in the middle of nowhere if you've ever landed at Alice. Okay, not much happening there. Red Centre Cattle Station, they're cropping, so they've got cattle, but they put a whole big patch of land under garlic. So who's read about the garlic we get from China? You know those big bags of white garlic? It's bleached and poisoned and everything, and yet we still buy the cheap garlic. Why not grow Australian? We'll be selling garlic back to China. Okay, so that's talking about diversification. Those are massive opportunities. Now, what happened in Perth? So 50 years, the resource sector investment, that's how much, you know, if you get back to Kalgoorlie, when was that? 1850 or something like that. There was Victoria, Kalgoorlie was a bit later than that. But over 50 years, we've only invested 1.5% per year of our GDP into mine site investment. A boom is 3%. In 2012, we were spending 8%. So it's a rocket. It just shot up. And if you remember that recession we had to have, high inflation. Okay, what's inflation? The Reserve Bank panicked because our inflation's too low, and 2%. So in boom times, we haven't had the disadvantage of high inflation. LNG, 2006, 10 million tonnes. Now we'll be 80 million tonnes. LNG only accounts for 10% of the world energy. It's clean. The coal is dirty, then your oil and gas. So 10%. If you get Poland, a whole lot of other countries are building infrastructure to import more. So while the price is down now, it's because there is no port that you can park your ship at and pump the gas to that. They've got to build the ports now. So give it a couple of years. So 2020, we've just overtaken Malaysia, and we're the second largest LNG producer. We will be the largest by 2020. We'll overtake Qatar. The iron ore price, yes, it went up like a rocket and came down, but you know that it's 60% higher than 2000, and lateral gas is 50% higher than 2000. Now, I'm going to go fast because otherwise we won't get home. So we were ranked at number 7, Western Australia, as an investment destination for mining. We are now ranked number 1 by the Canada's Fraser Institute. That's a this year ranking. Saskatchewan in Canada, Nevada, and guess what? We've got Territory and South Australia. Imagine 3 places in the world top 10 ranking. So people are coming here because it's safe and secure. I just want to jump sideways. South Africa is in major recession. Its mining output drops 10% every year. Meanwhile, we more than doubled our iron ore, 2.5 times. LNG is going up. So the mining and the minerals resources, the volumes are massively increased. South Africa is collapsing. They cannot mine anymore. Africa is in trouble. Something like close to 40% of their population in a few years' time will be under age 14. Something, can I refer you back to that disclaimer? So a lot of young Africans are going to be looking for jobs. It's a massive population. They haven't got the jobs there. They can't mine efficiently. They're not using enough mechanization. So people are coming to Perth. It's expensive. Why? But we're productive and efficient. So very quickly, Perth, 1990 to 2050, more than doubled. Adelaide only went up by 300,000. Of Perth's population, about 43% are born overseas. So yes, we peaked at 70,000 in 2012. We're just back to normal growth at 2016. But we were the fastest growing city in Australia. And we will overtake Brisbane to become the third largest city in Australia. Third. That's pretty big for a remote mining town. Okay, the people, and I'll come back to some things later, but when we look at that sort of 20-year jump, Joondalup, there was Joondalup, and then there was Mandari, which was built way time before, and then there was Yanchep, where we had that Captain Mermaid thing. I can't remember what it was called now. Okay, but that was a remote holiday trip. Now there's houses there, and there's houses all the way down. So you can see all those people up north have jammed the freeway. Look at them. Wanneroo close to that. Fremantle hasn't had so much more people, but just enough to jam it. Kalamunda, Midland, Armidale, and Thomas. Now the reason it's faster there is the freeway, but as soon as you try across the city. So what Perth is struggling with is infrastructure. They need to buy, like Singapore, it's got a spaghetti network underneath it of underground. We're going to have to go that way. Carmen Lawrence, her legacy was the East Perth development and the bloody train line through the freeway, so she caused us major traffic jam because they were too cheapskate to dig a bloody trench and cover it and put the train line underground. It would have made Perth so much better. Now what they can do is buy a tunnelling machine and start tunnelling up Beaufort Street all the way north and a few other places. Imagine from Guildford, somewhere around there, across to Lansdale, a train underground. Every train station would be a high street precinct, and we'd stop being as much car driven. We are still a car city. It's the biggest disaster for Perth. So Perth now has the highest median incomes of across Australia at 50,000. 2000, 10 years ago, a little bit more. That we're about the same as WA and Queensland, and New South Wales and Victoria were ahead of us. We're now leading the nation. So very multicultural, 41 to 43%. Ahead of Brisbane, London's only 36, New York's 29. We've got 18 international city connections, Sydney 45, Adelaide 8. Adelaide's in a time warp. So for Perth to be connected with 18 capital cities, pretty good. Now, what's a major city? It drives the whole thing. So without getting too stuck there, Chinese cities are changing and growing faster. China is the new, it's going to overtake the West. It'll take a long time, as you heard earlier, to get those capita incomes up. But 8 European cities drop out of the top 50 and taking China in its place to 17 Chinese cities. So have a look at the top cities in the world. This is the forecast GDP growth. So yes, we've got New York. New York makes all the money in America, and Los Angeles, etc. But New York's the powerhouse, a bit like our Sydney capital. But look how many Chinas will be in the top cities in the world. Now Perth features at 176. It's an extremely small, remote place. No other Australian cities are in the top 50 growth cities. That's the GDP, the amount that we will increase by over that period to 2030. So we're beating all the other cities on that front. Okay, now Marina's going to help me. I'm going to try the internet, which is dangerous.
Where you want that?
My link. Okay, just go down to the bottom. No, there's a WA. Sorry, you have to go back to the top. Okay.
Where you right to the top?
Yeah, Western Australia. Sorry, Perth. Just go down to Perth. I'll point it out to you. It's right over there. I hate driving computers when you're trying to think. Okay, I got that. It's good enough. So,
John, you got to look at that screen.
can't I see it any other way?
It doesn't have another option.
Ah.
Charles, why don't you talk from memory, because I know this is one of your favourite subjects. So.
Sorry, I just. Okay, won't take a second. Once I got it up, I'll be quick. Okay, so. It doesn't like me that much. Okay, so this is Perth, and I'm just going to shrink it a bit. And what it shows us is the top 3 migrant groups. Now, if you see, it's the UK, and pick any one. It's about anywhere around 5% of every suburb are POMs. And the next biggest group is Kiwis. So, if I can find this other map, you see it's just, okay, this is my favourite one. Now, you all know where Butler is, up north. Okay, there's a little skinny suburb next door to it called Jindalee. It's a little skinny beachside suburb, and it comprises 9.1% South Africans, 1.5% Zimbabweans, 10.6%. Now the Zimbabweans, let me tell you, it's, sorry, we're out of action. You can find it there for me if you can. So 9.1% South African, 1.5% Zimbabwean, 10.6%. It's the highest concentration of South Africans in any suburb in Australia. Now what it shows is the wave of South African migrants coming through our mine site construction boom from 2006 to 2016. There was an Afrikaans wave. If we get the other map up, just go to the next one, which says exclude. It's below that. Just page up, and it excludes POMs and Kiwis. So otherwise, I'm going to pull my other picture up. That's him. Now just click on improve the map down the bottom there, and hopefully it'll show us. So I'm going to let you drive that for me so I can sort of show you some things. So you see, this is Fremantle, and I'm going to do it this way. It's easier. See, this is Fremantle. They all came after the war, lots of Italians there, okay, Croatia, etc. But south of the river is less than 1% South African. North of the river is 2 to 4%. So when we start going up here, 2 to 4%. And as Perth grew, you can go right to the top there. There's Hillary's. You see how the South Africans, it's the top 3. So if I picked anyone, like Tapping is 4.3. Yeah, whichever. Currambine's good. 6.6 Scottish, Zimbabwean. So when you add the Zimbabweans, what happened with the Zimbabweans? They all moved to South Africa and lived there for 20 years, and then they came here. So they sort of semi-South Africans. Okay, so you can see all the people. Don't tell the Zimbabweans that. Back up, please, Bruno. Okay, now, if we go down to Murdoch, please, a little bit more. Malaysia. So what I want to show you here is in the 90s, in Jakarta and in KL, they were burning the Chinese shops, okay? Chinese are second-class citizens in Malaysia. They are not Burma Putri, so there was a lot of pressure against them and they burnt their shops. They came to Perth. So if you have a look, this was the 90s wave. No, just stand still. That was the 90s wave. Okay, you see it's all Malaysia around there. Now, we didn't have any Indians in Perth. We didn't have any Indians in Perth in 1990. There was no good Indian food. Coming from South Africa, where there's 55 million people now, but there was about, so there's around about non-African, ethnic African, Indians, whites, Europeans was about 5.5 million. There's 1.2 million Indians in South Africa. So you can see major influence on our food and sort of attitude there. The Indians in Perth came from Kenya and from South Africa. And a few other places, there's lots in Africa. So if this shows Indians coming from India, see this massive thing here from Aussie Park. So if you drop it a bit, so can you see many saying China? No, just come down a bit there. Down, down. No, the other way. The other down. Okay. Where does it say China? There's a few from China. That means they're born in mainland, not China from other places. Okay. There's a few from China. So what I'm going to tell you is the money's coming from China. Beijing's got the most billionaires in the world. But the people are coming from India. So at the moment, there's 40,000 Indians in Perth born in India. There's about another 15,000 Indians born from in Africa, Aden, etc. There are 40,000 South African-born residents of Perth. So an interesting sort of number. We've had Indian students for many years. So we're getting lots of Chinese money, Chinese tourists, a lot more Indian residents. The last one that I'm going to finish off on is Germany's in crisis, France is in crisis. We're getting German, French, boilermakers, welders, carpenters, skilled people, Polish, Czech, Brazilians, everybody coming to Perth. And the last thing I want to share with you is if you all ask everybody please to vote for Donald Trump, that's going to really benefit Western Australia's economy because no South Americans will be visiting the US, they'll be coming to Perth, okay? And a lot of other people, the Indians won't be going to America, they'll be coming to Perth. So if you could all just help Perth by telling your American friends to vote for Trump. I'm going to call it quits there. Thanks very much.
If you think that was fast and furious, you will see Charles doing a strategy for you.